All right, I think we're ready to get started. All right, thank you everyone for coming, and those of you who have dialed in virtually, welcome as well. My name is Kevin Chung. I'm the chair of the Department of Medicine at Informed Services University. And on behalf of Dr. Jason Blaylock, Chief of Medicine at Walter Reed, welcome to our joint USU Walter Reed Department of Medicine Grand Rounds. And so I'm going to be introducing our speaker, Dr. Astronaut SEAL Jonny Kim is here with us. He's a husband, father of 3 children, Navy SEAL, combat medic, highly decorated, Harvard-educated physician, NASA astronaut. And I'm told that this morning he was telling me he's training to be a pilot. Because why not? So, you know, he's an inspiration to a lot of us, especially those who have struggled and challenges in life, even tragedy, and then later on had some taste of success. He really represents the best of every one of us in America. And I was just so thrilled that he agreed to participate in this grand round. It was actually planned 2 years ago, and then the pandemic hit. And every time, instead of doing the virtual, Jonny insisted on doing this in person. I'm so thrilled to have him here with us. Please join me in a warm welcome.
Mic checking. Can everyone in the back hear me? Okay. Good. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a real honor and a pleasure for me to be here. And this is my first time actually on campus at USIS. I've never been to USIS. I wanted to come to USIS.
Recording in progress.
I wanted to go to school with USIS. I have a quick funny story before we get into this. I was an E5 Special Operations Combat Medic. This is back in 2007. And I wrote to USIS saying, look, just hear me out. I'm an enlisted medic, I'm a SEAL, but I would love to be a doctor. And I know typically you need a 4-year undergraduate degree, but I promise I will work so hard. Just give me a chance. And USIS was kind enough to write me back and say, thank you for the letter, but of course, you know, everyone needs the standard prerequisites. I said, okay, I'll have to do that. And it was funny because I was telling my buddy, Drew Morgan, who is also an astronaut, Dr. Drew Morgan, he's a USIS grad, as well as the story. And he left this program for that now. It's called PMTP, enlisted. I don't know what the acronym is, but so I think I was just a decade too early. It's an honor to be here. And actually, I was talking to my buddy Drew Morgan, same Drew Morgan, Dr. Drew Morgan. I said, hey, I get to do creative rounds. And he was talking about this. Oh, it's great. I got to say hi to some faculty folks there. And I got reminded of this story when back in 2015, 2016, I was in medical school. And my buddy gave me another USIS grad who I knew well from the SEAL teams. He had texted me and he said, hey, astronaut Drew Morgan's coming to USIS to give some type of presentation. And I'm like, dude, I will fly down there because I want to meet Drew Morgan. And didn't get to meet him at that time, but got to meet him now. I think he's one of my good friends and a colleague and a great astronaut. So a lot of reasons why I am so thrilled to be here today. And also, I've never given grand rounds before, so this is especially my first grand round, so I cannot think of a better place other than Walter Reed where I can do something like this. And Dr. Kevin Chung was so kind, we can talk about this for a couple of years. And he invited me over, and I got a little nervous. I said, you know, there's a lot of dust collecting on some of these medical textbooks, and it's been a little bit of time since I've seen a good clinical case. And he said, no. Really just talk about your story, how you got to where you are, and that's easy to do. Although it's not something that I'm very comfortable with, and I've never really been very comfortable talking about my story. But I think we all here can agree that we are always the summation of our experiences. We come to this world in a soft shell. Our personalities, our values, they're driven by our experiences and relationships we have with our loved ones. And we have a lot of mentors and failures along the way, and lessons learned. And so I hope to tell you a little bit about my story, my journey, and share some of the lessons and mistakes that I've made along the way that I think are relatable in medicine and business, politics, leadership, really anything. So I'm just absolutely thrilled to be here today, and I really appreciate everyone for your time. After this, we'll talk about 30, 40 minutes, pretty informally, and then afterwards, for any questions, I really encourage people to dig deep, and ask those hard questions. Really, nothing is out of bounds here. Go to the next slide, please. So the first lesson I'd like to impart is that it is important. Next slide. This is a picture of my mother and I. Let's say in the 80s, shortly after I was born. I was born in 84. And a picture of myself as an adolescent. And the reason why I think it's important to bring is so much of what we can accomplish depends on what we believe. And growing up for me, I grew up in Los Angeles. I was born in 1984 in West Los Angeles. My parents were immigrants from South Korea. Like a lot of immigrants, they came for their promise of their future for themselves and for their children. And growing up for me was pretty tough on the West Coast. I won't get into too much of the details, but I had an adolescence where I really didn't have any dreams. I didn't have the tools, mainly confidence, to believe in myself, to achieve anything. And so when I think of my adolescence, I think about a lost and scared boy. That's what I felt like for most of my years. Very afraid of the world, very afraid of relationships, of putting myself out there, of taking a chance, of being vulnerable. And I didn't know what I wanted to do. And it didn't help that I came from a pretty difficult home situation. I think a lot of that confidence, the lack of confidence, stemmed from that. You know, when I was a kid, I had the crew of Apollo 11. I don't even know where I got that. But the alarm drum of all my colleagues and the moon, the backdrop, it's something that I've always been interested in. But I never once thought I'd be an astronaut. I didn't have that up there that I aspired to be an astronaut. People like me, boys like me, kids like me did not become astronauts. They didn't really become much of anything. It's because I didn't have the inspiration. I didn't have those dreams. Next slide, please. I went a little bit too early, but just continue talking about my adolescence. The first time that I felt calling was when I was 16 years old. And I had a good friend tell me about his dream to become a Navy SEAL. And at that point in time, this is the year 1999, I had never heard about a Navy SEAL. I think there was one movie about Navy SEALs and Nick Shore machine, and it was terrible. So being a Navy SEAL was not, I mean, just no one talked about it. And when my friend told me about his dream, there was this spark that occurred, this calling that I had never felt before. And it drew me. I have a hard time even now articulating why it was so powerful. Certainly the culture of secrecy, relative secrecy, of doing hard professional work that sounds professional, that warrior culture really drew me. And I started telling my mom about this and saying, I want to be a Navy SEAL. She didn't know what that was, but she knew it was a warrior of some kind. And that was the last thing she wanted her son to do. My mother and father had different plans for me. And actually, my father wanted me to be a physician of all things. Which I don't think that's why I think it's a physician. I'll talk a little bit about it later. but I didn't want to live there for a reason. I wanted to live my dream. This was the first time that I felt that I had a dream, and it was to be in the city. And that was also the first time I started to really find my own identity. Because at the time, I was living in between two worlds. I was Korean American. I had my traditional Korean household, and I had, I had a very different environment at school, but I never felt like I really belonged in either world. So finding my identity was really, really important, and this was the first step for me finding that. And so I started to train my body. I had focus, I had purpose. I lived I went to school a few blocks away from the beach, so really easy to go do. I was swim, run, pull ups. And so I was getting ready. And then 9/11 happened in my senior year, and I'm sure everyone here can remember where they were and what they felt when it happened. And maybe my past sound a lot more picture on paper than I wrote it outside. This certainly galvanized me to want to join the military, but to be honest, I already made my decision then to serve, and I had pretty, I say selfish reasons for wanting to serve, because I wanted to go on my own odyssey, find myself, be challenged, to find my identity, and the military was kind of an excuse. I'll talk a little bit later about that really selfish purpose changed, and I found a calling that was much greater than myself. Next slide. The second lesson that I've learned along this journey is that we can lose our moments. Next slide, please. These are a couple pictures from runs. I think a lot of them say they're in 08. I also don't even remember 08 very much, so I'm not too sure where this picture came from. But I do remember what that face looks like. It is pure pain and suffering. I love the way I look in the top right picture. And I think that was just day one of we were just completely smoked. I had a couple funny stories to share before I even go. This is the second time I've talked about this in public, so maybe I'm not as embarrassed. But I didn't believe, I talked a lot about how I didn't believe myself, but I also felt like I was not meant genetically, talent, whatever you want. I'm on a little tangent here. I don't really care much for forward talent. Let me explain that. I do believe that there are some individuals that are born that are so positively skewed in the right direction on the distribution of genetics that the mind develops. Who absolutely certainly is one of the hardest workers and raise some kids, born with traits that certainly help him achieve what he can. But then there's the majority of us who are not born with God talents. And I certainly felt and believe that I did not have any of those. And I think it's okay not to have those God-given talents, because I would take motivation and hard work over born talents any day. So, sorry, let's hold tangent. Let me go to this funny story I was talking about. So, the reason why I didn't really believe much myself is because I just had these experiences like, Johnny, you're not meant to do these crazy things. I was 16 or 17 years old, and I was taking martial arts, which is something completely outside my comfort zone. But after I had made the decision, I'm like, yeah, I need to start doing things that are outside my comfort zone. Be comfortable being uncomfortable. And I took this martial arts class outside with a couple of my friends, and one of these days, I did something wrong. I can't really remember, but the instructor was yelling at me so much, and I was just standing there, kind of like martial arts attention or whatever, and I started to get tingling. I started to feel sensations in my limbs, my fingers. I started getting lightheaded. The next thing I remember, I'm on the floor. I had passed out. I had a failed response from being yelled at. You can set, go on the big bad name SEAL. Don't pass out and get it. The second thing I had, what's really, really embarrassing is, do we have any formal enlisted folks here? Wow, that's awesome. So in Navy boot camp, the last day, I don't know if it's still this day, is battle station day. It's like this big day that they all hype up, and you're up for 24 hours. You go to various stations across the base and Great Lakes to replicate battle stations. One station might be the ship's on fire, or another station the ship's flooding, and you got to respond. And towards the end of battle station, so it's maybe like hour 22, 23, I'm standing in line for but I fell asleep standing up. I did this whole like buckling thing, and I fell to the ground. I fell because I fell asleep standing up. And obviously the shock woke me up, and I stood right up, and I was embarrassed. But also, like, holy cow, if I'm trying to be a SEAL and I got SEAL for 5 days doing work that's way, way more difficult, how can I expect to do that things to get for one day? So I had these occasions in my life where I look, when you're trying to do the impossible, you're trying to break the limits that your body can't do. But skill training taught me that the limits we think we have are those on ourselves. And this was really the first part of me rediscovering that. And once I realized that the body, the human body limits, the limits we really have live up here. And once you realize that, you become unstoppable. Next slide. Picture on the left is in Baghdad, 2008. And picture on the right is an RG and split in half from a pretty big IED. And after SEAL training was kind of the next test I had. I was deployed in 2008. First to Ramadi, and in 2008, I was in Baghdad for a bit, with some stints in Southern City, which is not a great place to be. And again, still in the shell of someone who thinks they're not meant to amount to much. But the SEAL teams is a community that I'm so appreciative of, because it was the first time I came to a community where you were best. There was no less. You wanted to be a sniper, and you had the attitude and the aspirations and the motivation. Do it. If you wanted to be a lead navigator, you could do it. If you wanted to be a point man, you could do it. Despite being the medic, tactically speaking, I don't think the medic should be the point man. But it's an honor. I was very, very proud. And it was also the first time I realized responsibility. I got to appreciate the grand responsibility we have as soldiers, as SEALs, as physicians. People depend on us for their lives. And it's an honor that we have to hold to safety. Next slide. Don't take yourself too seriously. This is something I need to remind myself of quite often, because I tend to be serious, at least at work, but hopefully this comes across as funny. I've never shown this in public. And you know, jokes, it's kind of risky, not risky in like an inappropriate way, but sometimes jokes have so many inside connotation. Like, it's an inside joke, so I don't know if you'll get it, but you can't take yourself too seriously. Hopefully the next video will show that. Next slide. Oh, thank you. So the Chiefs contest this is in 2008 in Iraq, and that's pretty nice. And I had made the mistake of waging buffoonery war with my toothpick, Jay, and he decided that he would unscrew the hinges off my door. I couldn't find out my door, Anyway, you know, I think not taking yourself too seriously is something that we always do, reminding ourselves. Have fun. Slide. Future skills. I'm not great at war storytelling. I in fact don't like to tell war stories. I don't like war. I'm really any aspect of war. But this was a big lesson that I've learned in combat, and certainly something that is applicable to every single person in this room. Next slide. These two, the gentleman on the left, his name is Mark Lee, and Ryan Joe. And both of these were my teammates. They were SEALs. And Mark was shot and killed on August 6, as was Ryan. Ryan survived his injuries, and I'll talk a little bit about it, but he did die, unfortunately, after surgery. And to bring this story to the lesson of skills, I'm going to walk back a little bit. So this is in 2006 in Ramadi, and at the time I was serving as a special operations combat SEAL. And we were working pretty deep in Ramadi, which at the time was one of the hottest cities in all of our countries. And it was kind of a time, it was the Wild West. You could go out on an operation and you fire rifle almost every single time. I think that I fire my rifle almost every single day, and also receive fire. And in the weeks leading up to that, we were working in a pretty deep area of Ramadi that was getting mortared and receiving a lot of small amounts of fire. And one particular incident was pretty devastating on some of the local armies. We took some really bad shrapnel from the and not being too resource heavy in the area, I was glad to lend a hand as a special operations combat medic, and I went to kind of a triage center, which really just 20 by 20 concrete room with no water power, really bare bones. And I was trying to help get vascular access for these guys. Some of these guys were pretty heavily bleeding, so it was quite hard. I permanently already. And of course, being a medic, combat medic, getting IV access. And, the senior at the time was Major Physician's Assistant. And you know, we were just kind of jousting each other. And this is my insecurity showing. You gave me a hard time about not being vascular access to these guys. And I was professionally embarrassed, maybe for everything, and just kind of carried that with me. And we'll see here in a little bit why that matters. Going forward, on 2006, we had a military operation in the area, and Ryan on the right was the first to get hit. Shot through the machine gun into his right cheek. And luckily, it was an AK round, so I think that enough of the energy dissipated through going through the metal stock before it hit his face. It was pretty devastating to his face. I was a medic on the scene. I was able to secure his airway and control the bleeding as best as I could, packing him up. And we got him, and we had Army armor come, which the Army would come in and save the day. And we got Ryan packaged in there, and he's still talking around those things. Of all things, trying to reassure me. That was just Ryan. I always thought of other people before. And along the way, I can see where we're turning in the CPC. We're turning towards the triage center, which I know is a couple miles away from Ramadi, where we had the surgical center, just what Ryan needed. We needed a surgeon, we needed the operator. And we stopped off in the triage center, and despite my fees, I had to just following orders. And the 04 physician assistant was there. And we were arguing, I wanted to get Ryan to the higher tertiary care and we wanted to assess Ryan. And I already knew that what Ryan needed, this place had not provided, either from a clinical perspective, a resource perspective, they just there weren't enough skill sets and there weren't enough people. And the PA, who I believe was doing the best he could, in what we thought was his scope of care, wanted to give Ryan a therapy, which I think everyone knows you would not give a base parent deal with suspecting accident factors, which Ryan certainly had actually shot in the face. And it was a surreal time I played, like, what could I do? I played it as best as I could. There's certainly a power dynamic there, being V5 medic, low 4 positions. And also that story I just told you before, where I felt pretty low profit coming into this because this was the same medical practitioner that gave me a hard time. And so it certainly was intimidated by it. One thing led to another, and I was asked to go outside. It was a chaotic, stressful event. I was asked, of all things, in the heat of the moment, to go outside and clear my home. Which, team guys have a lot of, I wouldn't say we're cowboys, but clearing rifles, we don't typically go to a barrel and clear a rifle, we just kind of go in the same direction. And so I was, forced to go outside, point in the barrel, which is the safety, this is the right thing to do. And cleared my rifle and came back at that time. And I'll never forget Brian bending over and just vomiting copious amounts of blood. And I looked at the PA and I saw a lot of emotions. One I could see was regret. I think he didn't know that he did the wrong thing. And my request to go to Cameron Life in there were granted without question. So I took Ryan and we went to Cameron. He got backed up by he would need me surgery and bone off. And I think about this event, and I was very angry at myself, very angry at Major. And I had since forgiven myself and Major for this. Everyone in their heart had the right intentions. But we always have, most of the times, most of us have the right intentions. But as stewards of medical care, of anything, it doesn't have to be here. It could be in any type of position. You have to know your own scope of skills. And you have to have enough humility to know when it is outside your scope of care. So that's why I say keep your skills. Any environment, medicine, combat, leadership. People often mistake ego for confidence. It's a thin line. Next lesson is all need help. Next slide. That's when I say deployment. I had, at this point in time, at 4 my career. I really wanted to go to tier 1 and I wanted to go to see next screen go that way. But I also was pretty inspired, very, very inspired by the position I had during my combat tours. I wanted, hence my letter to use this. Please take me. But I decided if I wanted to do this, I need to get it. So I was luckily granted into the Senior Animal Program, which is the Navy's mission program. I went to the University of San Diego, where I graduated. I studied mathematics, and then went to Harvard Medical School. And so this picture of my graduation at Watsy. Of course, my oldest son, Christian, is a lot older now. I always love this lesson is we all need help sometimes. I did not have I did not have enough clarity to realize I needed help during this transition. And people often ask me, what was the hardest part of your career? What was the hardest phase? And hands down, the hardest part of my life, my career, was retransitioning back into the civilian world. Now, I was still kind of pseudo-military, and I started wearing uniforms to be Nazi. Hard nuts was simply pseudo-civilian, never, it didn't do guarantees, right? But it was a tough transition. It was a really, really tough transition. And not until many years later, after I've talked to men, that I realized the years of therapy that they treat themselves to, that I, for some reason, was just either too ashamed or too scared to ask for help. I went back to years of unnecessary suffering and hardship on myself and my relationships with my family. And that's only by the grace of my loving wife, I cannot fathom why she remained with me through those years. Those were tough years. Not because I was trying to double pre-med and giving out parking tickets to pay for tuition and starting a young family, but because I was dealing with so many demons in the past. And so I see this because we're all going to have hard phases in our life where we feel like the world is just crushing us. And there's a million things going on, but there's always help. And ironically, it's so hard to ask for help when you need it most. It's okay. It's okay to ask for help. It's the right thing to do. Next slide. Can't grow without challenging your experiences and perspectives. Next slide, please. SEAL teams, the war, they gave me amazing tools to deal with conflict, stress, in my life. Tools that I'm very appreciative for, that I will use for the rest of my life. But I know the real phase of my development, my growth, was not being still. It was being learning to be a doctor. It was regaining my humanity. That was when the real growth. Sure, I can go through health. I could put myself and my body and my mind through immense amounts of pain and suffering. I could push hard and just push and get through any goal. So when it came down to meeting people at human level, to being vulnerable, to having passion, I could not do those things. We in the military like to say that we know how the world works, that we feel we know how the world works because we're the 1%ers. We're the less than 1%ers. Those people do not raise their right hand and swear an oath to the Constitution to uphold our values and be willing to lay our lives down for that. And that gives us experiences and hardships that most people cannot understand. Especially if you are in a war combat environment, you will be exposed to extreme experiences that will harden you and give you tools that you cannot get elsewhere. Don't fool yourself into thinking that we don't live in a bubble as well. I certainly lived in a bubble when I was in combat, when I was with SEAL teams. Well, I am so proud of my experiences and of that community. But for all the pluses and the tools that I got from the SEAL teams, I also carried a lot of baggage and a lot of negative tools that did not help in the outside world. And it wasn't until I went to medical school when I tried to take care of people that I really realized all the tools, the soft skills, passion, the vulnerability that I have been missing for so many years. And that is where I felt the most on growth. I have this really story that I'm not ashamed of, but it's certainly a story that I think about a lot. And it stays with me. And it was in second or third year of middle school, but we were just starting the clinic. And we had this mandatory touchability kind of hour, like, I don't mean that disparagingly, that's how I considered it back then, where we had to talk about our experiences and how we were feeling and the stresses of the hospital environment and how we were coping with it. And I refused to play. I had my computer up, I'm like, doing my email, and I am not going to talk about my computer. I am not, like, I lived way worse than this. I lived in combat, I'm not going to talk about my computer. That was just hard, taking care of people. We're not getting shot at. I'm okay. And I was looking at the wall. I could not face my own feelings. I could not be vulnerable. And I was very lucky enough to have professors, physicians who were particularly inside the club. You're a real hindrance to the growth and development of these conversations. I'd like to be try. And so, one, I took that to heart. Okay. Why am I unable to play this conversation? Why am I unable to? And it was because I was afraid. I was afraid to do it. And it was the first of many steps I took to realize that to meet people, to connect with humans at a meaningful level, you have to be. So that's probably one of the most important lessons I learned. Being outside the walls. So I encourage any of you, if you have an opportunity to do fellowships, do residency, or residency, but if you have an outside opportunity to kind of walk away from military, still keep that mantle, I really encourage you to do it because you'll be surrounded by people that don't as you volunteer, that they have different perspectives, but you will be better for listening, opening yourself up to new perspectives, hearing how other people think and talk through that. It'll be better for that. I owe these people a lot. These were a lot of my colleagues. Next slide. Remember where it came from. Next slide. I was talking with Dr. Jonny a little bit about this, how it's so important to remember where it came from. We all start off somewhere. And when we're going through life, we all aspire to one day be change makers. To be at the top where our decisions, our service, our contributions make meaningful change. Most of you will get that opportunity here one day. Maybe not now, tomorrow there will be a day. Don't forget your humanity along the way. It's so easy to do that. It's also really easy to forget your core values. Michael Matsuer to the top left. My mother, myself there, Mark Lee, Ryan Joe, John Thompson. I put a lot of names up there, a lot of faces up there. And myself as a young, lost, scared little boy. We have a privilege, everyone here, we have a privilege. I use that word. We have a privilege to take care of people, be change makers, to do good things. Let's not forget where it came from. Slide. On a lighter note, here's some pictures of my NASA experiences. So, at medical school and for an internship, I applied for NASA being an astronaut, which was something that I never really thought of. It was one of those opportunities where it was in line with why I wanted to be a physician. At the end of the day, I wanted to give a tribute to this world in this lifetime in a meaningful way that makes other people better, makes their lives better. Physicians do that on a daily basis. And for me, getting to be an astronaut was the same thing, where I got an opportunity to inspire those young kids, the same kids like myself that didn't have those dreams. Think about tomorrow. NASA's been great. I've had a lot of fantastic experiences, getting to fly a deeper gauge in the spacesuit, water stuff training. Next slide. And most importantly, we do a lot of team skills in NASA. These are those 4 things that we do here. It's not an individual sport. These are just some pictures that reflect some of the experiences that we do. We do a lot of geology training, kind of unlock survival training at the top right there, and the whole support. So we need to do some more things and put ourselves in situations where we. Next slide. The last lesson is to live your life. Or the call the letter read. Next slide, please. This is Ryan and Joe, one of the 2 individuals I showed you earlier. That was the person who shot in the face. This is taken a couple days after getting the shot. He's not making it. That's Ryan. There was nothing that could get Ryan done. I had been through a lot with Ryan. We were actually in buds together. It's not really that common to be assigned to the same person with buds. But not only were we in buds with, but that picture I showed you myself, like crazy underneath that boat. He was there with me. So Ryan was my boat. We've been through a lot together for a long time. And it's like I said before, and I completely agree with him. Someone said, what happened to Ryan? So after Ryan was shot, he lost sight in both eyes. He was really blind. I'm the last person he saw. I'm really sorry for that because I wish I was a lot better once he was blind. Someone said that what happened to Ryan, it's like it couldn't have happened to anyone better. What I think was meant by that was he, of all people, whose life would not be deterred from such a tragic event like this, that was Ryan. There's nothing stopping Ryan. It did not slow him down in any way. Anything, it only made him want to do more. Next slide. He did do more. Climb mountaineer, blind. There's a picture of him being led up the mountain. And there, bottom right is a picture of Ryan and his wife Kelly. He shared his daughter with. Next slide. I want to read a letter with permission from the Joe family that Ryan sent his mother on August 3rd, 2008. And to recount Ryan's life changed on August 2nd, 2006. So this is 2 years and a day after it happened. From Ryan Joe to your Jimmy Joe. Subject, August 2nd. I had a good day, a normal day. I woke up at 0500 and went for a 25-mile bike ride with 10 and 5 miles. I'm training for a triathlon. Kelly worked all day, but then we had to stay things together. August 2nd is more of everyone else's normal day. For me, August 3rd is the day I live in every day. I don't need a special day or anniversary to remember August 2nd. Every waking moment of my life reflects on the event of August 2nd, 2006. Let it be known that I do not regret the career decision that I made that ultimately sentenced me to a life of blindness. This is the life I chose and will choose it again. How could I feel sorry for myself? God granted me infinite miracles. I am alive. I choose to keep living. Kelly chose this life. I am now God's servant. I am tasked by the Creator to inspire others to shed their own self-peace and choose life. There are 2 options for me: an unmeaningful, unused life of slow death, or a life of meaning and purpose. I choose a meaningful life, and I will serve my God and my wife. I will produce children of my own, they will run this way of life to me. All who know me hear my words. I was born a warrior with the God-given warrior spirit. I cannot see you all, but I can see battles that need fighting that you cannot see. I am still a warrior and will be always. My head is bloody, but unbowed. No matter how straight the gate or charged with punishments of the school, God is the master of my feet. Easy captain of my soul, Ryan the warrior. I read this letter for the first time a few months ago. I had never known this letter was written. Back my old boss, later tested it to me. He said, "Hey, you got to read this. This is quite unbelievable." One of the letters from 10 years ago, and I read it, and I cried. I don't know how someone can be that strong. I certainly would hope that if I had that same circumstance, that I would choose to live for the benefit of others. And so Ryan chooses, among many others, he chose life. Ryan was unfortunately taken from us. He died about a year after this letter was written. He's one of many people I think about when I think of reasons to continue, to inspire, to do our very best to make this world better. And I encourage everyone to find their Ryans in this world. Thanks for your time.
We have about 30 minutes for questions.
So, sir, President Pennsylvania, thank you for help. I want to ask, how did your mindset change from going to law through medical school to acting school? Did you head on the way that you tried to get yourself through those training, or did you try to keep the same mindset throughout all of your life?
Great. Sorry, thanks for the question. Question was, how did you, for people get out there watching this link, was how did you maintain your mindset in different phases of my career, SEAL training, medicine, and for me, it's been a collection of tools gathered along the way. And I think in phases of our life, we get tools like early, maybe in our military careers, where we go through a lot of PT or maybe some really strenuous physical training. That's a tool to kind of learn and go through suffering. And maybe those tools are not directly applicable to other things, but they can be. And so for me, I think it's really important to take tools that we learn from our life. It doesn't have to be just extreme circumstances. It doesn't have to always be through one's military career, it can be through outside activities or events. And so for me, it's been kind of remembering that mindset, especially the one where I had to really endure through SEAL training and also before, and also remembering, hey, look, you've done this before. Maybe it's not, it didn't look the same, but you endured hardship before, and hardship has the same language in anything. We just need to learn to be able to translate those skills into other things that we do. And maybe I like self-discipline. Discipline to me is one of the greatest traits, and I think that in itself applies. It's kind of a parent trait for so many things that we can do.
How did you feel when you were going through riots?
How did I feel going through it? A lot of cheating. It was really hard. It was a long 6 months. If you're going to go through it, I highly recommend you go through it in your earlier years. Make yourself it's tough, it was challenging. It was, at the time, it was the hardest thing I had ever done. But I also realized that we go through hard training in medicine, in military, in bloods, because real life is hard. So we train ourselves for those things, those hard things. But would I do it again? Absolutely. It was, it's hard, it's type 2 fun. Have you ever heard of type 2 fun? Type 2 fun is, it's fun that's not fun at the moment. Type 2 fun is when you look back on it, you think fondly of it. Like, oh, Buzz, oh, going through 5 minutes, oh, wait, belly, nothing, remember after this. Feel so tired. That's fun. Sir.
My question for you, sir, is what role does failure or the fear of failure play in your success in your life?
Very important question. What role did failure play in my life? I will caveat that not only is failure really, really, really important, but your attitude to failure is almost just as important. Because there are people who will fail and will not learn anything from it. And I think the key ingredient is humility. When you have humility and you fail, it hurts. Carry it with you. Don't forget it. That example I gave, maybe it's not a failure case, but I would say it's a failure to meet people, to meet humans at their level. Putting a blockade on myself. I'm not talking about being unable to taking those set of discussions where we're talking things in the hospital. That I consider that a failure. And that still hurts me when I think about it. And it's good, it's pain helps us from. So failure has been a pivotal tool for me. And the ones that I remember really are the failures where I fail other people. That's what I really remember. And it hurts. But I'm glad it hurts because I won't make that same mistake again.
Thank you very much for sharing your experiences. You've been a part of a lot of different teams, and I'm wondering if you could share your tips on how to optimize teamwork and performance.
Question was any my perspective on optimizing teamwork performance. I think the base trait for any leader in follower, the good follower, is self-awareness. I'm actually borrowing this from a conversation we had with one of my astronaut buddies. Her name was Jonny, and we were just talking. And I was talking about teams, and I was talking about emotional and social intelligence, and how like being aware and reading rooms were really important skills. So, yeah, situational awareness. That's like those are the 2 words that encompass everything. Situational awareness of yourself and your surroundings. What I mean by that is when you have the emotional and social intelligence of your team, read body language of your team, know when they're tired, know when morale is down, know when to say the right thing to the right times. Those are ways to optimize teams. We can go on, there's a long list of traits you can probably read on Business Insider that you've heard of being open, being communicative, being vulnerable. Yeah, so those are all true. But when I think about it, I think maybe one trait that kind of comes in, I think of self-awareness, situational awareness, and humility. I think with those, it gives you the answers on what we need to do to optimize it. Because there's no one answer that fits all for every situation. But the situational awareness gives you the insight to know which tool to use.
A few more minutes.
I see one there, and we'll go here. Yes, sir. Thank you again. This is more of a fun curiosity question. Have you not become an astronaut? What field of medicine would you go into? I joined med school to be a surgeon. I wanted to be a trauma surgeon. I just wanted to get after it. I wanted to get back to the teams. I wanted to be on the special operations team. And I would say definitely things changed for me. Not that I didn't want that. The craft surgery was always, and still feels to me. But then after my second year before, I realized that I needed to choose the field. So I went to I was Mass General and Brigham to become an emergency medicine. So I got picked out after the position. I just finished that. But to answer your question, I would have been.
One final question. Maybe two.
Yes, sir.
I was just gonna ask, taking, kind of considering your own childhood, and the fact that you have 3 kids now, what is your philosophy as a dad on how to kind of encourage kids?
The question was, now as a father of 3, what's my perspective on having my kids raised? I'm learning every day. I think being a father, being a parent is one of the hardest things I've done. And I wish I could say that I was a great parent, and I'm not so sure about that because it's just being a parent is hard. I try to not stand in the way of my own children. I need this wholeheartedly, and I want them to be the best. All I ask is that they become the best versions of themselves in whatever direction they want. Is that the only requirement is that they're the best of them. And I'm particularly worried, I don't know if worried is the right word, about my oldest, Christian, because he'll come home and he's a really, I mean, all my children are amazing. He comes up and he's super thick. He's read more books than I have my entire 30 years. He'll read the entire Hobbit series in like a day or 2. And so, but we'll see him come back with these military books. I'm like, Neil's such a warfare book. History Neil's such a warfare book. And I kind of talk about love. You don't need to be me. You don't need to live your life for me. You don't. My father wanted me to live this life. Live your own life. If you want to go down this road, you see a river. Absolutely. Make sure you do it for yourself. That is such an important thing. Make sure you do things for yourself. Just things just don't work out well. You do your choice, you do something, you do it, anything, and you're doing it for someone else. I think maybe that's a very that's just such an American way of thinking about life. That's always stuck with me, and it had a lot of conflicts with my traditional household. Because certainly growing up in a Nation household, it was always expected that you live with your parents. And that's not. I know.
I have several questions. How are you able to transition your mindset during still training with yourself to the time of school boards or academically challenging?
So I wouldn't say the academics were hard because at the end of it, brute force. Just get through the book, get through the letters. I mean, it's just pain. It's just different type of pain, right? But for me, really the transition was requiring different tool sets. So talking a lot in the SEAL teams is not a tool set that helps me be successful. Being quiet, being strong, being accurate by shooting, being a tough guy, those are really good traits. Those same traits are not really appreciated. So that was the harder part. And that's where the self-awareness I talked about earlier of knowing what tools to use and what aren't. I started to be an astronaut for all those experiences. And we are the summation of our experiences. Right? And that's why diversity of experience is so important for all teams. You want to hire people, you want people from different backgrounds, diversity experiences, because you can put the gamut of complex solutions.
Or really, just not one final question.
Dr. King, thank you so much for your explanation talk. I brought my teenagers, my daughters here, that they see your life and inspiration, and they want to be part of the Artemis project in NASA in the future. What message you can give to them to accomplish that dream?
So many things I want to say. I don't know how much time to say it all. There's nothing I can say right now that's going to have the answers for every tool you're going to need to be successful. But the most important thing is that you're motivated. And you are, the fact that you're here, it shows your motivation. But you're motivated to change the world, to make it a better place. I think that is such a point. You're hungry about it. Stay hungry about it. Keep that motivation up. Change the world. You can do it. The tools you need to do that you'll figure out along the way, and it will take a lot of time, you're going to fail a lot. If you want to continue to change the world, make it a better place to be a part of artists, to explore other worlds, to learn about climate change, to bring, to inspire the next generation, want to be doing that for the right reasons.
All right, well, just to bring this to a conclusion, we have a couple of point presentations. Jonny, that was an amazing story. Thank you for your valuable time and spending time with us. I get the feeling that, after all these accomplishments, you're just getting started, it seems. And that's the most important part. Amazing. Amazing. So just a small token of our appreciation, can't do much since we're governmental, but point learning to care for those in harm's way. Thank you very much.
Jonny, thank you so much for being here today and talking to our team. A lot of people in this room over the last couple of years have gone through a lot with COVID and with a lot of other challenges throughout this hospital. Your motivational testimony, I think it's just wonders for this group. So thank you so much. On behalf of Walter Reed Department of Medicine, Walter Reed, I really want to present you with this challenge. On the front of it says the President's Hospital, where the nation built its purpose, and on the back is all the service emblems depicted at our hospital. Thank you.
Concludes our program. Thank you for attending. Sorry about the audio issues for those of you who are virtual. See you next time.